In July, August 2020, I decided to add some sumo in my new block. I always have been a conventional lifter. I started to pull heavy on that movement, and very fast I experimented pain in both sides of my hips. At first, I thought that it was pretty normal because I just started pulling sumo and I didn't have much hip mobility. It was just a question of time that my body adapted to this new movement, and as soon as it would, the pain would just go away. I was totally wrong because it got worse, and I started to experiment pain in my squat and in my day-to-day life. As soon as I stayed too long sitting or laying down, it reached that point where the pain were no longer sustainable. I was just squatting with a lot of pain and I couldn't hit depth anymore. It was scary because I didn't know what I had, and very frustrated because I couldn't lift heavy, and I was afraid to not be able to come back at my highest level. I did scanner, RIM, radio, echography, nothing. Nobody was able to tell me what it was, to give me a medical diagnosis. I saw some chiropractor and I felt some relief during a short period of time, but it was still there and was coming back as soon as I started to squat heavy again. I reached that point after a big competition in February that I could no longer squat heavy, and it's at that time Squat University reached out and we started to work together. He gave me some tests to do and I did it, and I filmed and I sent it to him, and at the end he was able to tell me that I was suffering from a hip impingement. He was the first, after like maybe 8 months, to give me a diagnosis, like something, what it was.
Here's one of the exact videos I sent Lya early on with some instruction based on what she found.
Now, if you have pain when then pulling across your body and bringing your leg out to the side, so we're flexing and then we're internally rotating like that, if jamming that forward, pulling your knee towards this shoulder, creates that pinching pain, that is one probable sign of a hip impingement.
Now, when she did this test on her left hip, it recreated pain. Here's what this meant anatomically.
If we look deep at the hip using our skeleton Tommy, we can see the end of your femur fits within the hip socket called your acetabulum, like a golf ball sitting within a bigger plunger. Now right here, as you go down into a deep squat, your femur moves into the motion of flexion. Now, those who experience pain in the bottom of a deep squat often do so not because of the muscles that surround that area. So if it's only in the deep squat, it's often not something like a hip flexor issue. It's often because of something much deeper, in that your femur is running into the front side of the acetabulum, your hip socket, and pinching things together. And that's called a hip impingement. What are we going to do to actually solve the problem? We're going to take a 3-tiered approach. First and foremost, we're going to work on creating a little bit of mobility deep within the hip joint by looking at some of the stiff capsular fibers and then re-educating the way in which the muscles that surround the outside hold the joint within place. Then we're going to work on coordination and stability, and then put it all back together with a more sport or movement specific motion called a deep squat with a band around the knee. Now, in this position, if you did not have this band and you pushed the knee inwards, you would probably feel a pinching sensation. But because this band is pulling laterally, we're creating a gapping sensation deep within the hip joint. Now when I push the knee into internal rotation that was previously restricted, I don't have that pinching pain. So I know I have enough tension on the band. If I do this and I still get that pinching pain, I need more tension. So I'm just gonna get a little bit more lateral. But 2-step process. The first, we're gonna improve mobility. So the knee's gonna push in. I'm going to try to relax my lateral hip as much as possible. Again, take all that tension out of the lateral glute. I may feel a little bit of like a gapping sensation, light stretch on the outside part of the hip, but no pinching pain. Next, we invite in a neuromuscular re-education. Teach the body how to pull the femur back into a good position. So I'm gonna drive the knee out to the side and I'm gonna squeeze my lateral glute. So I'm gonna try to squeeze my butt muscle as hard as I can, drive the knee out to the side, foot stays planted, don't let it roll on its side. A couple seconds, I can feel my glutes quiver, and then back. And I'm gonna rotate between this no tension, internal rotation position, back to re-education, squeezing the glute, back and forth. I'm gonna do that maybe 10 times.
Lya instantly started doing these banded joint mobilizations on her left hip and then followed these with side plank clamshells and some slow banded squats with a hip circle around her knees to engage the lateral glutes. We then worked on putting it all back together with some very slow tempo banded squats within a pain-free zone.
I started to feel relief like kind of immediately.
After a few weeks, she was getting stronger and had less pain and even squatted 160 kilos for the first time in months, 100% pain-free. Notice her face, it says it all. Over the next few weeks, she continued to slowly progress in load and even started doing some touchdown squats as an accessory movement after her squats. Recently, she's returned to lifting pain-free and even hit a 230 kilo, 506 pound deadlift in training.
Today, I'm totally pain-free squatting. I continue to stretch my hip, hamstring, and quad part muscles. I'm preparing for World Championship as a 63 lifter, and I'm trying to come back at my strongest level of squat because today I struggle with the mental part. I need to break some mental barrier about the pain in order to fully be confident with my squat again, and try to find my groove on squat too, because I was used to squat a certain way in order to avoid the pain, and my brain just kept that schema in memory, so I'm working on that aspect now in order to come back at my strongest level forwards.
They say that energy flows where attention goes, so I pay no mind. Why waste my time with all these negative cats scratching? So caught up in their egos, these people have lost.